This is how you come down. Whew. Holy. That was a couple of days. A little cross-eyed. A little cross-eyed tired, but no big deal. Everybody's catching fish, and a storm came through and blew rain and everything sideways. So we're in short morning. We'll probably go out later on. Now I get my quiet time. I get some people hurt here. Alright, here we go. Let's listen to this. This is titled My Sasquatch Experience. Hello, Steve. Please don't share my name. Okay, man, I gotcha. Due to my ongoing connection with the Marine Corps, although I'm no longer active duty, I still help instruct potential recruits in explosives. I'm not sure what they are. But my encounter happened in 2013 after my injury due to a roadside IED in 2010. Ouch. After I recovered from my physical injuries, I needed to work on my mental state. So a friend that lived in Washington State invited me to come up and stay in a cabin his family had for many years. It was near Whidbey Island. He said, I thought jokingly, just don't mind the big guy. You should be fine. No one has seen him since my grandfather. I laughed it off, thinking he was referring to some nearby neighbor his grandfather might have had some sort of problem with. But either moved away or passed away due to him stating it was long ago. Little did I know what pure horror awaited me. I settled in the 2-room cabin the first week with no problems. I enjoyed the privacy and remoteness it afforded me. It allowed me to decompress without having to deal with crowds, which I still couldn't be around at that time in my life. After being there for about 2 weeks, I decided to start exploring the beautiful landscape and forest. I woke to a beautiful morning that third week and headed out for a short explore, but found myself about 2 miles away from the cabin. You know that feeling of what's over the next hill? I've had that a long time. It's almost a disease. That's what drove me on that morning. After noticing just how far I'd gone from the cabin, I took a bearing on my compass and started back towards the cabin. Excuse me. Just after I started down this pretty steep hill, which led down into a narrow valley with a small creek at the base. I made it into the creek and crossed it after slipping off a rock with my right leg right into the creek, soaking my boot. I always carry an extra pair of socks. One of my many good lessons the Corps taught me, wet feet grows blisters, among other things. Anyway, I found a nearby stump and sat down and retrieved the dry socks from my day pack. I changed my socks without difficulty and stood up to continue my hike back to the cabin. As I bent over to pick up my pack, I heard what I thought was a deer blowing at me. A couple typos, but no big deal. I think as I stood up to locate the deer blowing at me, my eye line scanning at 4 to 5 feet from ground level, I seen this reddish-brown object beside a Douglas fir. Not understanding yet what I was looking at, I struggled to understand what I was seeing. Scanning from ruffle the 5-foot eye level upwards, I suddenly noticed that what was unmistakably a hand and an arm, a rather large hand and an arm. Before I could train my eyes any higher, this thing stepped out in full view. What stood before me was someone my brain just couldn't comprehend. My mind rushed through a catalog of what it could possibly be, and it was simply massive. Its shoulders were every bit of 5 feet across. It stood at least 9 feet tall, if not 10. Its arms led to massive hands, and finally, I locked eyes. We locked eyes. His face was massive, just as every single part of him was. But his eyes, they were black. His brow was large, his nose was flattened somewhat, more wide than flattened. I couldn't express in words just how massive he was. No bodybuilder held a candle to him. He stepped forward carefully, not a full step, only a partial step. Although his partial would have been more like 2 of my full steps. To say I was scared simply isn't adequate. I was horrified beyond words. His hands gripped into fists. His eyes, black at first, literally turned into red light in front of my eyes. He was within 40 feet of me. It's a bit much to experience. I was carrying a 9mm with me on a side holster, and I never once considered drawing it. I knew without a doubt it wouldn't help me in the least. An overwhelming feeling came over me to announce my intentions to him. This wasn't mind speak, it was an impression. Not mine, but his. It's so hard to put into words. But all I know and can say to describe it is to say it was an overwhelming feeling, not from me, but from him. I knew without any hesitation it was coming from him. So I did as I was introduced to do. So I did as I was introduced to do and announced my intentions to him, both verbally and emotionally. As soon as I did this, he relaxed his fists and shoulders. His brows eased also. Then this massive man, caps lock, turned and walked away. Let me read that again. Then this massive man turned and walked away, and he didn't run, but his stride was unreal. And although he walked upright like us, there was something different. I can't put it into words, but it was strange. My heart was still beating so hard and fast I believed it was going to burst out of my chest. But I got this impression, not my imagination, but his, that I was going to be okay. Again, it wasn't mind speak, but an impression or a feeling. Also, his chest wasn't fully covered in hair. Yes, he had hair on his chest, but it wasn't as dense as his head and arms and legs. Also, his hands weren't covered completely in hair. They were slightly hairy. His hands, his palms, was like ours, completely void of hair, but massive. His fingers were long and very large in diameter. Oops, sorry, I got my radio on still. There we go. His arms came past his waist, with his hands coming to almost his knees. His back was extremely wide, and what neck he might have had wasn't noticeable very much, and his butt was also big. I can't forget his eyes changing from pure black to red within a blink of an eye, and then returning to that black void once he was satisfied with my emotion, intentions, my feelings. That's the only way I can put into words what I experienced. Sorry, words simply fail to describe the experience of receiving the intense impressions I received from him. I don't know how to describe it any other way. I have no doubt whatsoever if I had faltered in any way, or either my real intentions, which I have no doubts he could read, or voicing my intentions out loud, he would have no problem tearing me limb from limb. And oh, in the effort to describe both his and my interactions, I failed to tell you what I said to him out loud. And in my inner intentions, I simply said, I mean you no harm. The sidearm is simply something I've carried my entire career. It's simply a habit to carry it. That's exactly what I said through my verbal words. and my feelings or intentions was just that. There was no way to fake those. I wasn't hunting him or anything else that day. I was simply enjoying the beautiful scenery, landscape, forest that day. I'm not sure what others have experienced. I only know what I experienced that day. That day changed my life in ways that's even hard to put into words. All the combat I experienced doesn't come close to the utter fear I felt standing before him. The power of him was felt in every fiber of my body and soul. He exuded a power that's impossible to put into words. It's taken me 5 years of watching your channel to finally write you and tell my experience. Thank you for what you're doing. That day changed me in ways I'm still discovering. I do know, beyond a doubt, that you have a very important part in this whole process. I'm not totally sure in what ways, but somehow I'm positive. It's a certainty I'm somehow absolutely positive on. I know you've already done great things and works with your channel, your honesty, and your humanity. But there's more, and I'm not sure what that is, but I'm positive it's inevitable. God bless you and your works. Thanks for giving individuals like me and so many others a safe place to share our experiences. And one last thing, Steve. I've debated about telling this part, but I believe in somehow On the last thing, Steve. I've debated about telling this part, but I believe I'm somehow supposed to. Since I saw him that day, I can feel their presence when I'm in the forest now. And don't get me wrong, it took me a couple of years to go back into the woods, but I simply couldn't live with myself after surviving so many close calls in the service and not return to the forest, a place of comfort and so much joy for me since I was a child hunting with my grandfather. Thanks, Steve, again. And thank you for finally coming forward. I'm super stoked you did. And I'm super stoked it helped, you know? What an intense, overwhelming, absolute, mind-boggling experience. You put me there. I've been there. I'm not as detailed as you, and not that aggression, and not the eyes. But I've been there. So many people have been there. I don't know what that splash was. Seal? Cleaning up fish cuts or something? Anyway, so there you go. There's another person. I said it, I think I mentioned that earlier. There's no... Oh, I wonder how many people are sitting here watching this channel saying to themselves, okay, I'm going to do it tomorrow. This is it. I'm doing it. I'm going to share it. It's time. And then they can't do it. How long we've been doing this and how many people still are trickling coming forward, right? After listening to thousands of the people here. It's funny, the bear hunter, the guy I was in the bush with the other day. Oh, hold on a minute. Got somebody coming for something. Oh. Sorry. But anyway, I opted out of bringing up the conversation with him. He's worked in forestry all his life. And he knows what I do here on this channel. And him among many other hunters have followed my hunting that I shared online for a long time. But just the fact he didn't bring it up at all, so told me that he definitely probably doesn't have any at all interest in the topic, which is fine. And I don't know what it is about this topic. I just can't seem to... I don't have the need to bring this topic up with people. I don't have to talk about it. And especially if I can tell instantly if somebody has an interest in it or a knowledge on it at all. And so many people don't. It's such a weird thing for me to observe in humans now, especially like this whole group of my friends, these girls. I've held them as babies. They all trust me with their lives. I babysat those children. When they were children, I babysat them. And one of my friends that are here today, he ran into one of these people. It scared him very bad, and he doesn't like to talk about it. But once you know, you know. You know what I mean? What am I getting at? What I'm getting at is, the bear hunter, let me back up a little bit. The bear hunter, he made a video of the hunt with me and put it on his channel, forwarded it to me, asked me if I wanted to check it out. I glanced at a couple of comments, and one guy said, "Is that the Steve that talks about Bigfoot all the time?" And he just replied with, "Yep." And that's it. And I know there's a bunch of hunting people, enthusiasts that follow my stuff that were actually upset that I started talking about this topic openly, publicly. Upset with me. Obviously, lots of people tried to humiliate me, but it's not easy to humiliate me. It doesn't work from me. But I don't even know what I'm saying. I guess it's just the part of this that makes people be quiet, don't want to talk about it, don't share my name. I get it, and I do not judge, and that's absolutely okay with me. As long as you get your truth out, I don't give a shit. That's okay. We respect everyone here, no matter what. But how do I not talk about this? How do you not? When you know it's truth. I don't understand how I can't keep my mouth shut when it comes to truth. I can't. And it's so weird for me to see so many human beings going through life that when they have this topic flopped on their plate in front of them, their brains don't even attempt to go and wrap around it for a tenth of a second. It's so bizarre for me to watch that. Because me, I don't give a shit what the topic is. If somebody I know that I trust comes to me and tells me that they saw something plain as day right in front of them, and it sounds absolutely insane, well, my brain listens to what they saw. My brain doesn't go to instant shutting them off and judging. It's a weird thing to watch. I mean, if I didn't know anything about this topic, I would like to think that if somebody came up to me and said, "I just saw a 10-foot tall, probably 4.5 foot wide of the shoulder, man-like, monstrous, some sort of a man thing looking at me in the forest, and I'm not going to the forest ever again," I'm not going to go, "Wow, that's pretty crazy," and then go back to watching a hockey game. Right? You tell me that, you got my effing attention. This is serious shit. Right? Especially if you got family or friends who live rural. It's very, very serious. It's not comedy. It's not entertainment. It's not something you can promote. That's why I never even attempt to say, "Hey, like, subscribe, share," right? You can't. The worst thing anybody could have done is made a reality TV show about this topic. The worst thing anybody could have done. Anyway, I'm babbling, aren't I? I'm a little tired. I'm looking forward to getting home. This has been a long run of not much sleep and just giving her. No more babbling. No more babbling. You can't change honesty. You can't change the truth. You know what I mean? You can't. And if people can't pick it up, people can't deal, can't handle it, oh well. People are going to laugh and scoff. Fucking give her, man. Give her. This isn't going away from me. This is all very true, very serious, and I'm not stopping. Not a chance in hell. Alright, I'm babbling. Sorry, guys. No subject. No title. Steve, I've been listening to your podcast since your appearance on Nino's podcast. I've been holding back emailing you because the experience my family and my buddies, my families around the area at that time with these people, were not scary or frightening. Never threatening or aggressive. More of a mystery. Doesn't quite fit the narrative I've been hearing. My first of many encounters with the Sasquatch was in 1973. I was 11 years old, living in Boring, Oregon. Somebody named a town Boring. No way. I grew up on a greyhound racing kennel. Crazy. My dad was a mechanic by trade, and all my friends were pretty much scattered around the area. Lots of Douglas firs. There's a good-sized hill, mini mountain, that separated us. My buddies and I all had dirt bikes, so we decided to carve trails around the mountain, which made our traverse around a mile over the top Instead of taking the road, which was around 15 miles driving around the base, to the other side of it and up to where there was a subdivision on top, where several of our pals lived. I was cracking gears, flying up the hill on my Honda 90, and there it was. It wasn't like I surprised it. You could hear me coming, and it was a big sucker. The color of a brown bear with graying around the face, 70% hair. As far as I know, we didn't have brown bear or grizzlies in Oregon. Some black bears. The danger animal were cats, mountain lions, 100 to 170 pounders. Plenty of mule deer running around for them. Our moms would paint eyeballs on the back of our helmets. Cats attack from the back. That's the theory anyway. One of my best buds was a Native American, a Wenatchee Indian. His mom told our moms to paint eyes on our helmets. It was an old Indian trick to thwart off surprise cat attacks. When I came up to a viewing distance of Big Boy, we both got a good look at each other before it turned and hauled us up the trail, and then it was gone. Big brown eyes. But I wasn't scared. Being a kid, I was thinking how cool it would be to have a Bigfoot buddy. There was a definite smell in the air, like horse piss, manure, and acid musk. Ugh. A couple weeks later, I was trying to get home before dark. I was cutting over the mountain, and my headlight went out. It wasn't quite dark out, but the canvassing of the Douglas fir made it pretty dark in the woods. I finally got my headlight back on, but it was very dim. Then my bike wouldn't start. I kicked on that thing for 15 minutes, then decided to roll it off the trail and stash it until the morning. By then it was dark out. I'm fast stepping it through the woods, and then I noticed the silence. No crickets, no owls, no nothing. Now I'm starting to freak out. I'm thinking I got a damn cat stalking me, so I put my helmet back on and started a sprint till I was out of the trees and into the meadow, which was a quarter mile from my house. Everything was good, nothing happened. The next morning I was up at the crack of dawn to fetch my bike. When I got to where my bike should be, it was gone. I was upset. The bike was my social life. Without it, I'm dead in the water. With hanging with my pals. Mom and Dad couldn't afford to replace it, and baling hay and picking strawberries wasn't going to get me another bike that summer. Anyway, I walked back home and straight to my bedroom to grieve. My mom comes in and says, "What's wrong, honey?" "Someone stole my bike, Mom. I hit it good in the woods and somebody took it." She smiled and said, "Your bike is leaning against the shed, honey." I'm thinking, dang, Mom, you don't get it. So I go out to the shed and I'll be damned. There's my bike. Explain that. Nobody knew where my bike was but me. It had that funky smell on it. That's how it all started. In my opinion, your friend and the retired cop are speaking the truth based on my experiences. My Indian buddy's mom was a wealth of information about the Sasquatch. She did the offering thing with them. And the head talk. She never said anything bad about them. You respect them, they respect you. And I will say this, they do take things. Like vegetables out of gardens. And they would snap branches off the apple / pear and cherry trees. They like baled hay? Probably for bedding. Then we started to notice there was always a handful of arrowheads by where these things went missing. All of us had arrowhead collections, even our dads. Wow, that's pretty cool. My grandfather grew up in Norway. So did mine. He was a great hunter / tracker, and when he passed, my grandmother told me stories about the encounters he had with the Sasquatch. When we would hunt together after a kill, we would always drop to our knees, put our hands on the animal, and Gramps would say some type of prayer in Norwegian before dressing the animal. I always thought it was so cool. When Gramps found out he had terminal lung cancer, he went on his last hunt by himself. He would go to an area between Multnomah, Multnomah, M-U-L-T-N-O-M-A-H, Multnomah Falls, and the Dalles. There's a spectacular view of the Columbia River Gorge up there. I think he just wanted to go and take in his favorite view one last time, which I totally get. I was diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer, January 2nd, 2nd, 2020. With not much time left, I did the same thing. I guess Jesus decided to keep me around a little longer. Anyway, Grandpa told me he was standing there alone on the ridge, and the Sasquatch, who he encountered many times, was standing next to him. Sasquatch knew he was dying. They talked for a very long time. He told Gramps he had nothing to worry about. Grandma said Gramps cried when he told her. You have to understand, old school Norwegian men don't cry, they just don't. When I heard you mention the radiation thing on Nino's podcast, it made me think. I think the Sasquatch knew my Gramps was dying, so it was more important to comfort my Gramps in a very special way. Gramps was dying anyway. I don't know, Steve, that's just my take on what I know. Maybe they're tricksters, maybe they're Nephilim, demonic watchers. I do know they watch. I guess it's waves hitting that thing, huh? I do know they watch, always watching. But I do believe they can read our intentions, our minds. They're on a different level of consciousness. Maybe we have the same abilities, we just don't know how to do it. I do find it interesting that they hang around nuclear facilities. That's cool intel, as do the UFOs. Could it be they hang around these facilities to gather intentions of the people who run them? Perhaps to intervene when humans are planning a launch. There are good angels and bad angels. Could there be Sasquatch and bad Sasquatch? We know the worst of the worst angels are chained up in the abyss, the bottomless pit, until God allows them to surface. And here's one for you. In what scenario can a bottomless pit exist? In the middle of a circle. Is the abyss in the center of the earth? You're a courageous man, a fighter. You have a serious set of cojones. I'll ride the river with you anytime. This can be a very dangerous topic you're taking on. That one dude on TikTok had that video of a giant on top of a ridge. His next video was, I've been told to take it down. His next video, he put it back up. And his next video is him fearing for his life. Then he was dead, but he was just a kid. Sorry. God will put his hand of protection on you. Don't forget to ask him to do it, just saying. In summary, I think your friend is safe. Now that they are acquainted, he can go about his business with no worries. Probably just leave it at that, like my Gramps did. Thanks for being so damn brave. I'm with you. People need to know the truth. God bless Kirk. God bless you too, Kirk. I think you're probably met Darren going in there and just offered his ass up. Slept overnight for a couple nights, and they contacted him. We'll see what happens once I get these handful of days done. I got to get a few podcasts done, and we'll see what Darren's doing. Maybe I'll go. I appreciate you sending that in, man. I would have liked to have known what your grandpa, what Gramps, and this being talked about. Maybe if you could. I don't know if your grandmother's still alive. See if you can find out. That'd be very interesting to me. Thanks for sending that in, man. I appreciate the kind words. Clear Hills Reservation, 152 encounters. Hello, Steve. This is Barry Ferguson. I'm sending this from my new email address. You've read 3 of my encounters. Ram River Bluff Charge at my slashing crew. Encounters west of the Keg River, Alberta. Bluff Charge near Indian cabins on Highway 2. This new encounter coincides with an email you got about an Alberta forestry tech, and his encounters by Worsley, Alberta, and east side of the Clear Hills at a watershed. There's a watershed here near my family's trap lines on the east side of the Clear Hills. There were lakes and lots of swamps, and it's the headwaters of the White Mud. When the 1918 Spanish flu pandemic happened, my ancestors of the Dunvegan Beaver Indian Band, number 152. Oh, okay, there you go. Sorry, it wasn't 150. It's not 152 sightings. It's the Indian Band, number 152. gathered every able person and went north and kept walking until they could no longer see any signs of the white settlers. And that is where the Dunvegan Beaver Indian Reservation 152 in the Clear Hills is now. This is where my mother was born, and the same area that she told me they were raised next to a clan of Sabre. My brother from another mother, Charles, he had an encounter on the east side of the res. He was hunting and calling elk, and one walked out of the bottom of the hill he was on. It stepped out and was standing on the road and did not move for a couple of minutes. And then it turned and faced them and turned around and went back into the bush. He told me, he took me there and where it was standing. There's this massive game trail on the other side of the road. I walked in and there was this big X made of two 8-inch round poplar trees. One is pushed on an angle, and this other poplar tree of the same size is pulled out of the ground from somewhere and placed there to form the X. I'll send a picture of it. There's no mistake this was made. I walked down another game trail not too far away from the first one and found what looked to be a hunting blind of about 14 feet tall. A big spruce tree was pushed over on its side. Another big spruce tree was stacked on top and looked to be pushed down. Then there was another big spruce tree stacked on top of that one. There were 2 game trails going to that hunting blind and lots of movement in the area, but no tracks that I could see, just a lot of deep impressions. That was good enough for me, and I got out of there. All along this part of the main gravel road, I could see broken branches up high and something eating the young leaves up high around 7 to 9 feet up. Potential moose, son. Plus, I found a teepee structure as well. Moose don't make teepees. So after we came out of the hills, I told my bro to drop me off at the grazing area on the res. I decided to go to the mass grave site. I got about 300 meters in, and I saw something white standing in the willows to my right. I took my phone out, and I had this thing on the screen. This is what happened. I magnified the screen, and it totally disappeared on the screen. As I was looking at it with my eyes, how in the F did it do that? So I started walking towards it, and it moved backwards, and it was gone. I moved forward, and at about another 300 meters, I could see something black on all fours. At first, it looked like it was behind a shrub. It also looked like there was a heat wave in front of it. Look. I had my phone on it, but the camera was not on. I turned the camera on and magnified it, and it disappeared just like the other one. I took that magnification off and snapped the pic. With this one, I didn't go straight at it. I went off to the right, around a stand of trees. I walked to where it was, but it was gone. I didn't realize we were close to the Eureka Creek. There's also a small lake there, and there were no ducks, geese, or swans. It was so quiet and everything was gone. I made my way to the creek, but I couldn't get right to it because there was too much deadfall. I found a little space where I had a good line of sight to the creek. I was crouched down, and then all of a sudden I seen something brown, and then heard a kerplunk. Sure didn't sound like a beaver slapping its tail. Then shortly after that I seen a big boulder, probably 16 inches by 16 inches, hit the water. Then a louder kerplunk of the boulder hitting the ice and the bottom. That freaked me out. I thought whatever I saw on all fours was throwing boulders into the creek. Plus, it would have had to jump across the creek well over 20 feet. I got out of there. I started walking to my right again. I found the cut line going to the mass grave site. And I found another well-worn game trail that had an X going across it. I took some pictures of the X and sent them to my son, and he found what looks like to be a little juvenile head. I made my way to the grave site, and before I went in, I dropped some tobacco, and I started praying to the great Creator. I walked up to the first headstone, and then to the chief's headstone. I finished my prayer there, then I turned around, and there was this beautiful blue spruce branch laying on the ground behind me, and it was shaped like a flower petal. I got out of the gravesite and had a seat on a stump. I could see something grayish-white standing behind some willows. So I said out loud, it's got to go by his photos. Hold on, bunch of photos. I said out loud, I'm just here praying for my family and loved ones. And I got up and said, I'm leaving now, and got out of there as fast as possible. Just when I was in the bush, I felt like something was watching me. And as soon as I got out in the grazing area, that feeling of dread left me. How they're able to manipulate my phone, I have no clue. Thanks, Steve, for everything. God bless you and your family. I will attach the photos. There is that little lake in the creek. Barry Allen Ferguson. Barry, appreciate you, man. Big time. Big time. Thank you so much for that. There you go. Blurry photos. There's nothing we can do about it. They're blurry. You just got to accept that fact. Right? Until maybe, who knows, somebody, one day, one of these people decides to come right out and say, hey, what's up? But I got a funny feeling they don't want to. I got a funny feeling they don't really want too much to do with this. Especially today. Appreciate that, man. Email me whenever you want. Anytime, alright? Anytime. Oh, man, I'm starting to get a little nappy. I woke up at about... Well, what happened the other day? Woke up. Friends got here late. Supposed to be here at 10:30. They got here at midnight, and then had to pack all their stuff, ferry it over here, pack it all up, get them settled in this place they rented. And I think we got to bed at 2:30, 3 o'clock, and then got up in a few hours and then fished all day. And then but we were up at the same time this morning again, so I'm going to have a little bit of a couple-hour nap, I think. And hopefully this weather gets better and I'll take them out again. But anyway, excuse me. Guess as I sit here, I'm done sharing emails. For all those who just want to hear that, and that's it, though. I guess as I'm sitting here, Russia's moved a whole bunch of military vessels into Cuba. Basically about to replay the nuclear incident they had with the United States, with RFK. But I guess why not, right? I mean, that's what everybody's doing in Russia too, right? So it's only a matter of time. Hopefully the madness comes to an end. Hopefully somebody stops all these bad people soon. So many bad people and criminals doing so many nasty things and about to make life hell for the globe. Killing people is just so silly. It's just so ridiculous. Let's hope it stops. But that's what's going on right now as I sit here. Military vessels have moved into the United States backyard. Anyway. Stay positive, think positive. Right? Stay positive, think positive. Make people feel good instead of bad. Do things to help people and do things to make people happy. Right? If everybody would do that. Anyway, I'm going to go have a nap. I'm ready to fall over. Share my story, howtohunt.com. I should be able to do this again tomorrow. They're going to fish in the morning and then that's it. So I get to go home tomorrow. That's right. Okay, cool. That means I have to now email a few people to get these conversations ripping on here. One-on-one learning. I wonder where this is taking me and leading me. Isn't it weird? I didn't ask for this. Isn't it bizarre how life goes? I didn't ask for that experience. I didn't ask to be put in this position. It wasn't my goal. It wasn't my intention ever. It's funny how things happen, right? Just happen. My gut drives me. My guts drive me to keep going and keep doing this. I wonder why. Hope we find out soon. Share my story at howtohunt.com. All right? The link is in the video description below. Sarah's story, she still has the stickers, decals, decals. I'll put the link to that in the bottom, and the backup channel, I'll put the link to that as well. We've had a few things come on here that the dark sons of bitches don't want spoken out loud, so it hammered on the channel a bit, but whatever. I'll be back later. I'm getting too tired to be talking.